Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. We call him the Bearded Bishop. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
As always, we've got some great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation. And if you want your question answered, you can send us a text to 1-800-485-3139. And if you are listening to the sound of my voice, if you wanted to, you could also be watching the expressions of my face. Wow. Because after more than 9 years, can you believe it, 9 years of podcasting and more than 750 episodes, the first of which, just fun trivia, was called The Future of Church Media, published on March 25th, 2014. The Pro Church Tools Show has finally come to video. We are in our new studio. We are on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You can go to prochurchpodcast.com. That should redirect to our new YouTube channel dedicated to the show specifically. If you just search my name on YouTube, Brady Shearer, the new channel will be linked to that original channel. You should be able to track us down either way, but if not, prochurchpodcast.com. Alex, Bearded Bishop, how do you feel about being on video?
I feel great. I was just going to say, don't search my name on YouTube, because you will find my YouTube channel, but it will not be this show. It's not what you're looking for. It's a different show, different content, and happy to have you there. But
the Caffeinated Christian.
Yes, yeah, you'll find me there. There is, I think I got the YouTube handle Alexander Mills Coffee, because there is an Alexander Mills out there who beat me to YouTube. He is an indie artist of some sort. So if you search just Alexander Mills, you'll maybe be serenaded by one Alexander Mills, but not me.
Okay, understood. Let's start today's show with everyone's favorite segment, Christian comments. And the comments we're about to investigate come from this original video. You guys might disagree, but if you want your church to reach young people, you'll have to prioritize them more than other generations. And this isn't a hot take, by the way. I believe this is evidence-based. The book Growing Young, spearheaded by the Fuller Institute, was written by a trio of researchers, and their conclusion was, quote, based on research from the Growing Young Project, we're actually calling for churches to dedicate a disproportionately large amount of attention and investment in teenagers and young adults. Why? Because churches that make young people feel at home experience growth across all generations. In other words, young people multiply what is invested in them into the rest of their congregation. To be clear, this doesn't mean younger people matter more. This is about building a culture in church that prioritizes them, and in doing so, the whole church benefits. So we get these kind of comments a lot. These comments in particular came in response to a video where I'm saying, hey, here is how churches are reaching young people successfully, which is something that we typically as churches don't do well. Mm-hmm. And the comments comes, forget about this if you just preached the gospel. And this is such a common response that we get on social media. And the problem with this type of comment is that it's not meant to be helpful. What it's meant to do is serve as a theological trump card. Because invariably, when you start going down a dialogue with someone like this, and I say, okay, just preach the gospel. What do you mean by that? How? Do you mean we should be preaching on the street? Do you mean we should be preaching from a pulpit? And by gospel, do you mean like red letters? Do you mean the Bible as a whole? Do you mean that we should preach equally through every chapter? Or should we give more credence to maybe the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount? And what you find is there are parameters that this person has in mind for preaching the gospel. So they don't mean just preach the gospel. They mean just preach the gospel how I want to do it. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, right? Like we all have certain ways that we want to preach the gospel. And I think that we should be able to have these types of conversations without throwing down trump cards, because I think these people maybe want to be helpful, but hey, you're a pastor. Let me know. Where do you think they're coming from?
This one's, on our last episode, I was able to empathize with a pastor and his comment on your video. This one I'm having a little bit more of a hard time empathizing with, because I don't share that sentiment. Because like you said, we all preach the gospel by different definitions on different terms through different means that are usually informed by our culture or our communities. And we as a company, as individuals on this show and this YouTube channel now, are just trying to help and equip people to share the gospel in more ways, using technology, using digital, using social sermons, using YouTube. And so I have a hard time trying to find an empathetic point here, because I just don't share that sentiment. But I do share the sentiment that in whatever means that we do choose to share this message with, it's the message that is the most important thing.
Yeah, understood. We're going to keep doing these segments, Christian comments, because in the world of discovery, algorithms, what's happening is our content, and hopefully your content as well, church, is reaching way more people than it did before. In the world of social graph algorithms, you would know when your post was successful or a flop within the first hour or so. This post specifically did pretty well with our audience when it was first published, but probably not too far beyond a typical post's performance. And now it's been indexed in Instagram and in their discovery algorithms. And every day I wake up to someone saying, if you just preached the gospel, it would work. So we're probably going to keep doing these segments, Christian comments, because these things don't just come into us. Like if you've served in a church, you have had a conversation with someone, whether it was a parishioner or a person on staff. Like, enough. Like, who cares about social? Like, who cares? Like, if we just preached the gospel, and that's what we're all trying to do. And I don't like using that argument as this kind of like, hey, I actually care about what matters. Because that's why people say it, right? They're like, you're getting distracted by these things that don't matter. If we just preach, so are you suggesting like, okay, there's a global decline or a Western decline in church attendance. So are we all just stopping? Have we all just stopped preaching the gospel? And as I say that, I can hear them going, yes, because this generation has fallen away. It's like, well, to be fair, every generation has said to the following generation, you've fallen away. So let's have more intelligent conversations about this. And the way that we always approach this, because there can be generational differences, there can be, power dynamics between like maybe someone who has more seniority in your church who is saying this, and you're kind of new and you're the young person, and it kind of comes off poorly. Like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Always come back to, look, we are trying to accomplish the same mission as a church. And these methods are not meant to take the place of the mission. I'm not trying to suggest that. But if the methods that we're currently using are not serving the mission, then we should be able to explore different methods, because if we're not, then the older methods have now become the mission. Yeah. Because if we're not willing to change them, then they are taking precedent and being elevated to a higher place than the mission, which should always be our biggest focus.
That's right. All right, moving on from angry comments and into a question.
Not angry, just Christian comments.
Just Christian comments. Moving into a question that someone texted into the text line. Hey, Brady, we've long used connection cards at our church for people to take next steps digitally and physically. And then other sign-up pages for planning center forms for people to take other next steps. I love your view of next steps and the central hub concept. And so I've been trying to get buy-in across the board on this and utilizing our website's main page as a central hub. Herein lies my question. I know your thoughts behind mass texting as a church, very limited, if at all. What are your thoughts on engaging people through text in keywords and one-on-one follow-ups for next steps, all through text messaging? We recently started with a company called Clearstream and are using it to collect responses for certain things like baptism, first-timers, and new families to church. We've seen great success in our next-gen pastor following up directly through text with new families the weekend of as a welcome and sending them a free pizza as a gift to their family. That is a lot of fun. We're getting ready to implement it across the board in our assimilation process, but I'm wondering if this is even something worth the effort.
Okay, so text messaging can have its place in church. There are two things that you want to avoid. You don't want to use text in these ways. And the first is you don't want to use text messaging the way that you use your email newsletter. Okay? So email newsletter, for the couple decades that we've had emails, it's like, okay, we're going to send out a mass email about what's happening in our church to everyone on our list. That makes sense with email. You don't want to take that same approach to text. Why? Text is more intimate and it's a more personal medium. We are starting to get to the place, because marketers ruin everything, where we, on a podcast a couple of years ago, not long ago, we're like, yeah, I don't really get texts from companies except from my friends and family. I don't know about you. That has changed. Yeah. I get a lot more texts now that are promotional in nature. And I don't think that those are going to have the same effectiveness as what we are about to recommend instead. Now, you might look at the data. This is what happens. People that are selling text message services, hey, the open rates on texts, you wouldn't believe how much higher they are. That's because something is newer. And anytime something is newer, we rush to it, and it doesn't have the same stigmas as other marketing methods. Like, we have all just given up on email at this point, it seems.
Oh, I behave totally differently in my text inbox than I do in my email inbox. Like, I very rarely have pending text messages. When they come in, I read them. Even if I don't respond to them right away, when I go to bed, it's always like text message 0. But my email inbox has not been at inbox 0 for I don't know how long. So to what you're saying, it is very It's a lot easier to read a text message for me or to ignore an email than it is to ignore a text message.
I was at inbox 0 before we started this show. I'm now at inbox 1.
Oh,
It's tough. It's over for me. So don't use text the way that you use email. And the second thing that you want to do, avoid rather, is you don't want to use text as like the long way to get to your website. And this just very much drives me crazy when I see churches using text this way. They're certainly trying their best, but it's just making things more difficult. So you'll have something like, hey, text the keyword baptism, and we're going to send you a text. And then the text is, visit our website to sign up for baptism.
Right.
It's like, well, novel idea. We could have sent them to the website first, especially because when you use the keyword concept for every next step, you're going to have people being forced to remember like unlimited keywords. It's like, okay, I wanted to sign up for baptism. That's baptism. I wanted to sign up for growth track. Okay, I have to text growth track. Is that growth dash track? Is it growth track one word? Is it growth space track? Okay, I wanted to sign up for VBS. That one, hopefully VBS, but maybe VBS was used in the previous year. And so this year it's like, vacation. And that's a lot. Like imagine if you had to go to a different website every time you needed to take action at your church.
Right.
Like that would be very
memorize
difficult.
the URL or something. Yeah.
Every time you wanted to buy movie tickets at your local theater, you had to go to a different URL. Or if you had to memorize the keyword for, okay, I'm going to go see Mission Impossible. Okay,
Which Mission Impossible?
Don't they use Roman numerals in those? Like it's like XI. Is it Mission Impossible 6? Is it like MI6? No, that's the actual agency. Oh my goodness, I'll never go see. It just becomes difficult. Not to mention, you have to put in the 10-digit actual phone number before you get there. Now, with all of those caveats being said, I think the way that this church is modeling text messaging is the best way to do it, where they have 1, 2, or 3 keywords for their most important next steps in their church, baptism, new visitors, planning a visit. And what do those text messages lead to? They don't lead to an automated response with a link to sign up on the website. Yeah. You could have just gone to the website to begin with. They connect people personally to pastoral care and to staff at the church. I love that way of using text messaging because text is good, unlike email. Email's great for kind of like big messages to everyone. Text is good at connecting you to a real person, and it doesn't scale, and that's the point. It's one of the best digital mirrors for pastoral care because you're connecting to someone personally, directly, and it doesn't scale. Guess what? If you send a DM on Instagram, it's me responding, and it doesn't scale. And guess what? I'm not at DM 0 the way I'm at inbox 1, previously 0, because it's very difficult. But the reason DMs are so potent and valuable is because you're connecting to me in the same way text mirrors that also. The key is you have to then use it sparingly. And this is where we see churches kind of get out of control, right? They're like, okay, we have an upcoming summer barbecue, text BBQ to this number, and that's one announcement. And then they go, we're also having a movie night coming up. So text MIXI, which is actually that's okay. Apparently that's Mission Impossible 11. Pardon me. Text that so you can get registered for the movie. We're having VBS. Text VBS, and you get through announcements. And it's been 7 announcements. And you get 7 keywords. Plus you have to remember the 10-digit phone number. That you could have just sent people to the website and had the launcher there with all the actions, and it would have been way simpler. So yes, text messaging can play a role in your overall communication system, so long as the emphasis is connecting people to pastors, using it for your most important next steps, and then just use it sparingly, right? Like make sure it's only being used when it's absolutely important, and don't overdo it. Don't do the keyword for every single next step in your church.
I got bamboozled the other day. Propaganda, the rapper?
Sure.
Follow him on Twitter, and he sent out a tweet and said, hey, I'm working on something. If you want to know, text this number.
Oh, no.
I'm going to text this number.
Oh, no.
Because I don't know why. I don't know what came over me. I just thought, you know what? Oh, maybe Prop's going to be on the other end of this line. And so I texted it. And the first one that came back was immediate. And so I knew it was like an auto response. I knew it wasn't him. And then it said at the end of that, it's like the next response that comes, it's going to be me, like propaganda.
Oh.
But there was a couple more responses.
Oh.
And I don't know.
Prop.
I feel like I could see through it. I don't really. Maybe he wrote them, but it wasn't happening in real time. It was not propaganda on the other end of the line, I don't think.
Just so you know, if you send us a text to 1-800-485-3139, it's not us. It's just me. and you'll know because it'll probably be 3 days till I get back to you. But I read every single text and I respond to every single text. So 6 days later, when I get back to you, oh, it really was Brady.
Yeah.
And there's no automated text that says, soon you'll hear from me. It's just me.
Yeah, it's just you. Do the texts that come into the text line, are they anonymous?
Yeah, unless people sign their name.
Right. My dad wrote in a question. He told me this the other day. He
What?
confessed. He's like, I texted in a question, and he wouldn't tell me what it was. And I'm like, was it like over the top? Like, was it ridiculous, or was it a reasonable question? He's like, no, it was reasonable.
Reasonable enough that I didn't notice.
Yeah. So,
Huh.
Ricky texted in, but he didn't sign his name, so you'll never know. Maybe his question will show up on the podcast one of these days.
Okay. Wow. Jeez.
Maybe it's this next question.
Now I'm thinking about all the texts.
This next question could be from my dad. Will there be a backlash against generative AI where people intentionally move offline?
I know this wasn't him
Right.
because this person did sign their name.
Okay.
So I have seen versions of this question
Totally.
for the last 10 years anytime something new comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason is because the pace of change and the pace of innovation that we are living through is truly unprecedented and is so much that eventually we all kind of just have this impulse to be like, okay, I just need to take a step back.
Yeah.
The problem is that that is really kind of binary thinking, and we are all prone to that because the culture that we live in is so polarized that it's either you must embrace this entirely or reject this entirely. And you know this is true because every time you see like studies in politics as an example, it's like, 71% of the population supports this, but it can't get passed. Why? Don't we all want it? Yes, but we have two parties, and one has to fight for it adamantly, and one has to fight against it adamantly to rally the most extreme parts of their base. And then all of us in the middle that are kind of like, this seems normal. We're not allowed to actually make any progress. And what happens? The more we don't make progress, the more we start to drift to the extreme side of our line because we're like, okay, whatever. Like, we just need to go extreme on this because they're crazy on the other side. All the while, we become crazier ourselves. Oh, no.
So is this going to be the next mass exodus, do you think?
The digital exodus. I do not see this happening. I think what's actually more realistic is much more nuanced than that. And that is that, look, AI has some problems.
Yeah.
But AI is also something that we have been using for a very long time. We've talked about this in the context of video editing. When I started making videos for my church in 2010, if I shot my clips and they were not especially well lit, there was going to be a lot of noise in that image. Nowadays, I don't even think about noise. I'm like, I'm shooting at ISO 8 billion. That's fine. Denoise in post.
Even Lightroom, they won't even let you control the noise anymore on your own. Like, even if you wanted to go in and fine tune noise, they're like, you know what, we got it.
Generative AI, it's gone too far.
we'll
It's
handle
gone
that for
too
you.
far.
Yes.
We had a church that we were making a universe for. So we were building their website over at nucleus.church. And they sent in these staff photos. And they, you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. So they sent in these. Okay, if you're watching
You
on
can see-
the
I'll put it on,
pod, if you're
yes.
watching, you can see this. Wow, in real time. So,
We're new at this.
whoa, visual mediums. So they sent us these headshots, and they were not complete. They were like cropped.
They look like this.
And what they had done was they had downloaded them from their old website, but their old website had cropped them into a circle. And the new website that we were building, it needed like a 4x5 or a rectangular image. Like, what do we do? We're not going to reshoot all these. I was like, this is my chance to try my hand at Photoshop beta generative fill. So I download the beta and I bring in the headshot and I generate it, and it made a whole new headshot.
Yeah.
One problem.
It made a whole new something else as well.
AI is not good at hands yet. So you're seeing the hands.
Yes.
They were a little terrified.
Yeah,
So I just cropped it up
Yes.
and a new headshot was born.
We didn't need hands. We just needed a different aspect ratio.
And I was curious what this church was going to say because I was like, I've never been to this church, and it's kind of generating like areas around this person.
Right.
I'm like, can you look at this? And you're like, that is obviously not our church. Like, yes, it's bokeh, it's blurred, but they were like, this is amazing. How are you doing this? And I was like, oh, the generative
We're skilled,
AI.
yeah.
And I never showed them the uncropped images of their deformed
They're
staff
listening
and
to the show.
pastors.
They're listening to the show. They can see them now.
Yikes. So the other thing, okay, things happen so quick. We're just like, we got to reject this. But what more likely is going to happen is you'll always have people that are like a little bit out on it, but it's going to be such a big part of the everyday fabric of our lives. There's really no way to kind of remove yourself from it. And the analogy that we've used in the past, and I always return to, is like, it's like automobiles. It is the automobile industry and the development of our ability to drive from here to wherever we want, as long as there's land. Is that a net positive on the history of the world? I think you could make an argument either yes or no. I have no idea how you'd begin to even like prove one or the other. But what we do know is that there isn't a single person that I know, that you know, that does not get on an automobile of some kind.
Right.
Most of us drive our own. Some of us use public transit. None of us are walking everywhere. And you could say, like, I need to remove myself from this. There's going to be a big automotive exodus. No, you just can't do that. So there are going to be certain parts of digital that we're like, you know what, that's too far. In the same way that, you know, we have speed limits. Like, no, okay, that's too fast.
Sure.
And we're hopefully going to develop these types of, you know, digital hygiene habits that might be put in place as regulations. And what we're probably going to see is certain countries being a little more strict and certain countries being a little more lapsed. And we're going to see the fallout from both of those things. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if there are some European nations that are like, you know what? Nah, no social media until this age. And then I would be surprised on the inverse if America ever did that. Though it would not surprise me if, ironically, maybe it was the more right-leaning folks that are like, we need to do more. This is too much for our kids. But then you're kind of stepping on the freedoms of people and introducing new regulations. Is that what you want? Ooh, interesting. Maybe we are not walking the party line there. We have to kind of like deal with the conflict. And on the other side, the left, it's like, you know, like, no, like we should be able to like these, you know, you should be able to access what you want. It's like, no, free market, no, we've gone too far. And you know, hopefully some conflict that we can work through.
I mean, to take that automobile metaphor a little bit further, like that this type of technology is coming to automobiles. Like I have a friend of mine who he just moved, but was living in Arizona, and he posted an Instagram story in the backseat of one of those fully autonomous Ubers. And the car's just driving itself. The steering wheel's just moving. Like it's some sort of deep AI thinking that's driving this automobile. And I'm watching this story thinking like, good for you, Dakota. You're ready for this, but I am not ready for this. Now, as time goes on, I'm sure in the next few decades, I'm going to find myself in one of those things. I will have gotten ready for this and I will have gotten in because of how technology advances and this, that, and the other. But like from where I am today, I'm not quite ready for that. But it's coming.
That's a really interesting point because we've started to see the stratification of different generations on social. Like when we started, we were teenagers when social came out. So we had MySpace, and then we jumped to Facebook, and then we jumped to Twitter, and then we jumped to Instagram. We just kept like every time a new platform would come out, you'd join it. And our parents were on Facebook, and they just kind of stopped there. And then there's people in our generation that just stopped on Instagram.
Yeah.
And there will be people in the next generation that stop on TikTok. You are going to, it's kind of like the music of your time. This is what we listen to. And these kids, I don't know what they're listening to. Oh, they're on TikTok. Like, it's the same thing, but on social, right? The stratification. And so this person saying, we're going to have this digital exodus. No, what's more likely is that our generation is going to be like, they've gone too far now. This is too much. And the generation behind us is going to be like, or in front of us, I'd rather be like, what are you talking about? This is innovation. We're going to change the world until they get to a certain age. And it's the same thing over and over again. It's the same old song. And so that's why you need to have values. You need to have principles. You need to have the Holy Spirit indwelling within you that is guiding. And so you're not just responding in fear, and you're not just blindly accepting everything because it's new and cool, but rather we are testing everything with Jesus at the center. And be like, okay, how does this maybe speak to or is spoken to by the mission of Jesus?
I am afraid of the Boston Dynamic robot dogs, and will remain afraid.
They've been around for a while, so we haven't. We've always been afraid of them. Remember Osimo?
No.
Oh, Osimo, yeah. So this was a robot, and it's on the screen right now. I remember going on a field trip, and Osimo was there, and it was this like white robot, and we were like, "Oh, it's the future robot!" I don't know what happened to Osimo. If you're listening, you remember Osimo. He was awesome.
Nice. Gosh. Fourth and final question on today's pod. Brady and Alex, what are your beige flags?
What is a beige flag? Well, you've maybe heard of red flags. So
self-explanatory.
Let me just tell you, my nail tech, they are in a new relationship. I'm really excited for them. And my nail tech, despite being an esthetician, is a farm girl. And so much so that her sibling was invited to be on the show Find Love on the Farm,
No way.
which is like a new Canadian show.
I was going to say here.
Yeah, like, like Love is Blind. This is like Love is Farm. She said no. But that's how farmy this family is.
yeah.
So she meets up with this new guy. His name's Colton. I was like, okay, we're off to a good start. Sounds farmy.
Yeah.
He like does horse things where he just fixes horses. Great, great. So he has a truck. She says that's a big win. But she's 5'8". She's my height. He said he was 5'10" on his profile. They meet up in person. She's taller than him.
No.
So I say, Ms. Nail Tech, who will remain anonymous,
Yeah.
sounds like a red flag.
Yeah, that's not a beige flag.
That's what I said. I said that was a red flag. And she's like, no, because
no.
the last guy I was with said he had a truck. Turned out it was his dad's truck. Now that's a red flag. I say, agreed. But they're both liars. And I said, you know what the average height is, Ms. Nail Tech? And she said, for a man? She said, what? I was like, 5'10". Colton didn't just pull that out of thin air. That was a very intentional choice.
And if he's lying about that, what else is he lying about?
Precisely. That's a red flag.
Yes.
What's a beige flag? Well, a green flag would be like, no, I'm a short king and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
A beige flag is like,
I got the big truck.
listen, it's not a red flag, but it's not a green flag either. That's just kind of like, just keep an eye on it.
Makes you go, yeah, think about that.
So what are my beige flags? I wrote down 2. Number 1 are my nicknames for my wife.
And they are plenty.
And they will also not be shared publicly on this show because they are NSFW. What I can tell you is that I do not frequently call my wife honey, baby, sweetie. Or if I do, I have a number of other nicknames for her that are a lot more prominent. And perhaps you could say, if you're from an outside family, maybe Alex can speak to this, less than virtuous, less than complimentary.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
Like you said, not for the show.
The problem is that I've used them so often that if I don't use them, Britt will be like,
She's like, what's wrong?
that's not what you call me.
Right.
So I've gaslit her into accepting these less than virtuous, less than complimentary nicknames. She now loves them. If I call her, hey, baby, she says, hey, that's not what you call me. So outing myself a bit there. My second is, anytime Britt asks me to do something, I will just say no and then immediately do it. So like, she'll be like, she was working on this like woodworking project. And I was in the middle of like, an intense work session. And she needed me to help pick up the woodworking. She was like painting the hinges. I had to pick it up. She's like, Braid, can you come downstairs and pick it up? By the way, my wife's beige flag doesn't call me anything but my real name.
That's true. I've only ever heard her call you Braid.
She cannot call me any. Now, to be fair, she has also started calling me the less than virtuous, less than complimentary nicknames. So I guess I kind of then did that to myself. Anyway, so she says, can you help me pick this up? Well, of course. Of course I'm going to help her pick up the woodwork. But I say no. No.
In what tone? Like a serious no? Or like a playful no?
No, like a beige flag no.
Yeah. Like I'm actually not going to do it.
Yeah. And then I need about 8 seconds.
Right.
And then I'll do it.
Yeah. Click send on the email. And
No. I just need like 8 seconds to process it. Like I've been interrupted. I thought I was doing something. I need to go do something else. I'm like, no. Coming. Like I just need a few seconds to process it. And I think that latency is the beige flag. I need to work on making that 8 seconds a 5 seconds. And then hopefully by the time I'm 35, 45,
You'll be
55,
saying yes.
I'm always ready no matter what.
Is this unique to your marital relationship? Because we ask you a lot of questions around here or like stuff to do. And I couldn't think of a single time where you said no and then 8 seconds later you just got up to do it.
Why do you think I don't come to the office?
That's a beige flag.
I come to the office once a week. We all have lunch together.
Yeah.
And then we have a meeting where I mostly just like, talk about our personal lives.
then you're out.
And then I leave.
Yeah.
And then there's a problem and I get it on Slack. So I get it on Slack and I go, no,
Right.
to the Slack notification.
Yes.
And then I revisit it 8 seconds later.
Wow. Maybe something to talk to
But
your
I can't
therapist about.
put my wife on Slack.
Yes. When I saw this question come in, I texted my wife immediately. I said, Rebecca, what are my beige flags? And her first response was, you're pretty green to me.
See, this really upsets me.
But then she started texting me so many beige flags that I had to text in all caps, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, because that's her beige. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's Rebecca's beige flag. Her beige flag is she will like be so sweet on you with the nicest compliment, and then it's like my saying no. I'll say no and then say yes. She'll give you a compliment and then tell you how she really feels.
So she says,
She butters you up.
Yeah.
Oh, classic Southerner.
Exactly.
These Americans,
Yeah.
they know how to butter you up, and then they come in with the jam.
So she goes, "You're pretty green to me," and I'm feeling good about myself. And then I just see the 3 dots, and they start unfolding before me. And the first one that she came up with was so valid. She says, "You don't have a wake up phase. Like, you don't wake up gently. You wake up from your sleep, and immediately, like, you pop up, your glasses are on, you're downstairs doing something." She mentioned, like, you're cleaning something, you're organizing something. And at first I was like, I don't wake up that quickly. And then I recalled just a moment that happened this week. Our son, he's 2 and a bit, and he's cutting his last molar. And when he teethes, he has mid-morning wake-ups. He just will wake up. And so in his bedroom, there's a single bed. And so instead of trying to fight him back to sleep the other night, in the middle of the night when he woke up, I just said, "You know what, buddy? I'll get in bed with you. We'll sleep together." So me and the kid, we sleep together. 7 a.m., his sound machine turns on. The light turns on. Kid pops up like a loaded spring, and he goes, "Yook, daddy, light on." And he jumps over me onto the floor, and I hear his little feet pitter-pattering away. I'm in a daze. I'm waking up. I hear Rebecca from her room. She says, "Asher, come cuddle in bed with me." He says, "No, I cuddled with Dad in the big bed already." And then I hear, he's going down the stairs. 3 seconds later, I hear, zzz. He's got a toy vacuum. He's vacuuming. It's 7:01 a.m. He has popped up out of bed like a loaded spring, slid downstairs, and immediately starts vacuuming with his pretend Dyson. So that was confirmation enough for me. My wife didn't give that to him, so she's right about that one.
Yeah, don't you see yourself reflected in your kids, and they tell on you.
Yeah, they really do.
It's challenging.
My next one, now that I'm thinking about it, I also see reflected in him. I don't let my food touch,
Oh my gosh.
just generally. Like I'm not a child. I don't have one of those plates that has dividers. I'll make my own dividers.
Do you?
And there are 2 meals that are allowed to touch, and they're the same meal, but they just occur at 2 different times of year. It's Thanksgiving and it's Christmas. So like when there's a turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing and like all of it, it's like, yeah, this all goes together because it basically, they all belong in the same bite, so they can touch. But any other meal, I don't want my food anywhere near. If I could have separate plates for the items on the dinner table, I would. But I can't because that's sociopathic. So instead, I just make my little dividers. I make sure they're not touching. And my plate looks different from the rest of my family's.
And then do you eat section by section?
Yes, starting with least favorite to favorite. And I will actually turn, this flag may not be beige. I will actually turn the plate to put the next item in front of
You're
me.
like a lazy Susan for your plate.
I
You
should.
just spin it around.
Yeah. But Asher's the same way. If his food is not like clear, and
Yeah, he's 2.
he's a child. Yeah. If it's not clearly defined, like he won't. Like if the peas are touching the chicken, it's like.
How have I traveled the entire world with you and eaten at Michelin star restaurants and the most extravagant of meals and not noticed that you've been like,
Because at a lot of the restaurants we eat at, the dishes, they're tasting menus. The dishes come out one at a time. There's no intermingling, and maybe we should all be taking cue from Michelin star restaurants. Separate plates for separate dishes.
Your beige flag is defending this. This is infantile, okay? This is ridiculous.
I don't know what to tell you.
Hey,
My mom's the same way, so.
my wife is the same way, but she doesn't like food.
Right.
So I kind of expect it.
Sure.
You,
I love food.
no, you don't. All right, well.
Hey, they love us anyways, right?
Who?
Our wives.
Oh.
Yeah, despite our beige flags.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but I did have to tell Rebecca to stop. I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm gonna start firing back at you because
You're going to need to send in some more compliments to kind of like bring my morale back up.
send mix a green flag in every once in a while. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for listening and or watching, and we'll talk to you next week. If you want your question answered on a future episode of the Pro Church Tools Show, send us a text to 1-800-485-3139. New episodes of the Pro Church Tools Show drop every Wednesday, so subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust, and talk soon.